Let's take a look at the differences in leadership and management. Leadership is the process of influencing others to achieve group or organizational goals. According to the late business professor Warren Bennis, the primary difference between leaders and managers is that leaders are concerned with doing the right thing, while managers are concerned with doing things right. In other words, leaders begin with the question, what should we be doing, while managers start with the question, how can we do what we're already doing better? Leaders focus on vision, mission and goals and objectives, while managers focus on productivity and efficiency. Managers see themselves as preservers of the status quo, while leaders see themselves as promoters of change and challengers of the status quo in that they encourage creativity and risk-taking. Another difference is that managers have a relatively short-term perspective, while leaders take a long-term view. Managers are concerned with control and limiting the choices of others, while leaders are more concerned with expanding people's choices and options. Managers also solve problems so that others can do their work, while leaders inspire and motivate others to find their own solutions. Finally, managers are also more concerned with means, how to get things done, while leaders are more concerned with ends, what gets done. Although leaders are different from managers, organizations need them both. Managers are critical to getting day-to-day work done, and leaders are critical to inspiring employees and in setting the organization's long-term direction. The key issue for any organization is the extent to which it's properly led and properly managed. Trait theory says that effective leaders possess a similar set of traits or characteristics. Traits are relatively stable characteristics such as abilities, psychological motives, and consistent patterns of behavior. For some time, it was thought that trait theory was wrong and that there were no consistent trait differences between leaders or non-leaders, or between effective and ineffective leaders. However, more recent evidence shows that successful leaders are not like other people, that successful leaders are indeed different from the rest of us. More specifically, leaders are different from non-leaders in the following traits: drive, the desire to lead, honesty and integrity, self-confidence, emotional stability, cognitive ability, and knowledge of the business. Drive refers to high levels of effort and is characterized by achievement, motivation, initiative, energy, and tenacity. In terms of achievement and ambition, leaders always try to make improvements or achieve success in what they're doing. Because of their initiative, they have strong desires to promote change and solve problems. Successful leaders also have a stronger desire to lead. They want to be in charge and think about ways to influence or convince others about what should or shouldn't be done. Honesty and integrity is also important to leaders. Honesty, being truthful with others, is a cornerstone of leadership. Without it, leaders won't be trusted. When leaders are honest, subordinates are willing to overlook other flaws. Integrity is the extent to which leaders do what they say they're going to do. Leaders may be honest and have good intentions, but if they don't consistently deliver on what they promise, they won't be trusted. Self-confidence, or believing in one's abilities, also distinguishes leaders from non-leaders. Self-confident leaders are more decisive and assertive and more likely to gain others' confidence. Moreover, self-confident leaders will admit mistakes because they view them as learning opportunities rather than reflections of their leadership capabilities. Leaders also have emotional stability. Even when things go wrong, they remain even-tempered and consistent in their outlook and in the way they treat others. Leaders are also smart. They typically have strong cognitive abilities. This doesn't mean that leaders are necessarily geniuses, far from it, but it does mean that leaders have the capacity to analyze large amounts of seemingly unrelated, complex information and see patterns, opportunities, or threats where others might not see them. Finally, leaders also have to know their stuff, which means they have superior technical knowledge about the businesses they run. Leaders who have a good knowledge of the business understand the key technological decisions and concerns that face their companies. More often than not, studies indicate that effective leaders have long, extensive experience in their industries. At all three universities, two basic leader behaviors emerged as central to successful leadership: initiating structure, called job centered leadership at the University of Michigan, and concern for production at the University of Texas, and considerate leader behavior, called employee centered leadership at the University of Michigan, and concern for people at the University of Texas. These two leader behaviors form the basis for many of leadership theories. Initiating structure is the degree to which a leader structures the roles of followers by setting goals, giving directions, setting deadlines, and assigning tasks. Consideration is the extent to which a leader is friendly, approachable, and supportive and shows concern for employees. Consideration primarily affects subordinates' job satisfaction. Specific leader consideration behaviors include listening to employees' problems and concerns, consulting with employees before making decisions, and treating employees as equals. Although researchers at all three universities generally agreed that initiating structure and consideration were basic leader behaviors, their interpretation differed on how these two behaviors are related to one another and which are necessary for effective leadership. Is the team management style with a high concern for production and high concern for people the best leadership style? Logically, it might seem so. Why wouldn't you want to show high concern for both people and production? Nonetheless, nearly 50 years of research indicates that there isn't one best solution for leadership styles. The best leadership style depends on the situation. Fiedler's contingency theory states that in order to maximize workgroup performance, leaders must be matched to the right leadership situation. More specifically, the first basic assumption of Fiedler's theory is that leaders are effective when work groups they lead perform well. So instead of judging other leaders' effectiveness by what they do, that is, initiating structure and consideration, or who they are, that is, trait theory, Fiedler assesses leaders by the conduct and performance of the people they supervise. Second, Fiedler assumes that leaders are generally unable to change their leadership styles and that they will be more effective when their styles are matched to the proper situation. This explains why company founders are not always best suited to lead their organizations. When Fiedler refers to leadership style, he means the way that leaders generally behave towards their followers. Do the leaders yell and scream and blame others when things go wrong, or do they correct mistakes by listening and then quietly but directly making their point? Fiedler uses a questionnaire called the Least Preferred Coworker Scale to measure leadership style. When completing the Least Preferred Coworker or LPC scale, people are instructed to consider all of the people with whom they've ever worked and then choose the one person with whom they've worked the least well. Would you describe your LPC as pleasant, friendly, supportive, interesting, cheerful, or sincere? Or would you describe the person as unpleasant, unfriendly, hostile, boring, gloomy, and insincere? People who describe their LPC in a positive way, scoring 64 and above, have a relationship-oriented leadership style. After all, if they can still be positive about their least preferred coworker, they must be people-oriented. By contrast, people who describe their LPC in a negative way, scoring 57 or below, have a task-oriented leadership style. Given a choice, they'll focus first on getting the job done and second on making sure everyone gets along. Finally, those with moderate scores from 58 to 63 have a more flexible leadership style and can be somewhat relationship-oriented and somewhat task-oriented. Fiedler assumes that leaders will be more effective when their leadership styles are matched to a proper situation. More specifically, Fiedler defines situational favorableness as the degree to which a particular situation either permits or denies a leader the chance to influence the behavior of group members. The situational factors that determine the favorability of a situation include leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. The most important situational factor is leader-member relations, which refers to how well followers respect, trust, and like their leaders. When leader-member relations are good, followers trust the leader, and there's a friendly work atmosphere. Task structure is the degree to which the requirements of a subordinate's tasks are clearly specified. With highly structured tasks, employees have clear job responsibilities, goals, and procedures. Position power is the degree to which leaders are able to hire, fire, reward, and punish. The more influence leaders have over hiring, firing, rewards, and punishments, the greater their power. Relationship-oriented leaders with a high LPC score were better leaders, that is, their groups performed more effectively under moderately favorable situations. In moderately favorable situations, the leader may be liked somewhat, tasks may be somewhat structured, and the leader may have some position power. In this situation, a relationship-oriented leader improves leader-member relations, which is the most important of the three situational factors. In turn, morale and performance improve. By contrast, task-oriented leaders with low LPC scores are better leaders in highly favorable and unfavorable situations. Task-oriented leaders do well in favorable situations where leaders are liked, tasks are structured, and the leader has the power to hire, fire, reward, and punish. Finally, people with moderate LPC scores, who can be somewhat relationship-oriented or somewhat task-oriented, tend to do fairly well in situations because they adapt their behavior. Typically, though, they don't perform quite as well as relationship-oriented or task-oriented leaders whose leadership styles were well matched to a situation. Accordingly, Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory states that leaders need to adjust their leadership styles to match followers' readiness. Performance readiness is the ability and willingness to take responsibility for directing one's behavior at work. Readiness is composed of two components. Job readiness consists of the amount of knowledge, skill, and ability and experience people have to perform their jobs. As you would expect, people with greater skill, ability, and experience do a better job. Psychological readiness, on the other hand, is a feeling of self-confidence or self-respect. Likewise, confident people do a better job of guiding their own work than insecure people do. Job readiness and psychological readiness are combined to produce 4 different levels of readiness in the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership theory. Situational theory defines leadership styles in terms of task behavior, concern for production, and relationship behavior, concern for people. These two behaviors can be combined to form 4 different styles of leadership: telling, selling, participating, and delegating. Leaders choose one of the specific styles, depending on the readiness of a follower for a specific task. A telling leadership style, high task behavior and low relationship behavior, is based on one-way communication, in which followers are told what, how, when, and where to do particular tasks. Telling is used when people are insecure and neither willing or able to take responsibility for guiding their own work. A selling leadership style, high task behavior and high relationship behavior, involves two-way communication and psychological support to encourage followers to own or buy into particular ways of doing things. Selling is used when competent people are willing but not able to take responsibility for guiding their own work. Participating style, low task behavior and high relationship behavior, is based on a two-way communication and shared decision-making. Participating is used when insecure people are able but not willing to take responsibility for guiding their own work. A delegating style, low task behavior and low relationship behavior, is used when leaders basically let workers run their own show and make their own decisions. Delegating is used when people are willing and able to take responsibility for guiding their own work. In general, as people become more ready, and thus more willing to be able to guide their own behavior, leaders should become less task-oriented and more relationship-oriented. Then, as people become more ready leaders, they should become both less task-oriented and less relationship-oriented until people eventually manage their own work with little input from their leaders. Just as the name suggests, path goal theory states that leaders can increase subordinate satisfaction and performance by clarifying and clearing the paths to goals and by increasing the numbers and kinds of rewards available for goal achievement. Said another way, leaders need to clarify how followers can achieve organizational goals, take care of problems that prevent followers from achieving goals, and then find more and varied rewards to motivate followers to achieve goals. Leaders must meet two conditions for path clarification, path clearing, and rewards to increase followers' motivation and effort. First, leader behavior must be a source of immediate or future satisfaction for followers. The things you do as a leader either please your followers today or lead to activities or rewards that will satisfy them in the future. Second, while providing the coaching, guidance, support, and rewards necessary to effective work performance, leader behaviors must complement and not duplicate the characteristics of followers' work environments. Thus, leader behaviors must offer something unique and valuable to followers beyond what they're already experiencing as they do their jobs or what they can already do for themselves. In contrast to Fiedler's contingency theory, path goal theory assumes that leaders can change and adapt their leadership styles. This exhibit illustrates the process, showing that leaders change and adapt their leadership styles contingent on their subordinates or the environments in which those subordinates work. As illustrated here, the four leadership styles in path goal theory are directive, supportive, participative, and achievement-oriented. Directive leadership involves letting employees know precisely what's expected of them, giving them specific guidelines for performing tasks, scheduling work, setting standards of performance, and making sure that people follow standard rules and regulations. These activities are especially important during economic downturns and periods during which a company is struggling. Supportive leadership involves being approachable and friendly to employees, showing concern for them and their welfare, treating them as equals, and creating a friendly climate. Supportive leadership is very similar to considerate leadership behavior. Supportive leadership often results in employee satisfaction with the job and with leaders. This leadership style may also result in improved performance when it increases employee confidence, lowers employee job stress, or improves relationships and trusts between employees and leaders. Participative leadership involves consulting employees for their suggestions and input before making decisions. Participation in decision-making should help followers understand which goals are most important and clarify the paths to accomplishing them. Furthermore, when people participate in decisions, they become more committed to making them work. Achievement-oriented leadership means setting challenging goals, having high expectations of employees, and displaying confidence that employees will assume responsibility and put forth extraordinary effort. Path goal theory specifies that leader behavior should be adapted to subordinate characteristics. The theory identifies three kinds of subordinate contingencies: perceived ability, experience, and locus of control. Perceived ability is simply how much ability subordinates believe they have for doing their jobs well. Subordinates who perceive that they have a great deal of ability will be dissatisfied with directive leadership behaviors. Experienced employees are likely to react in a similar way. Because they already know how to do their jobs, or perceive that they do, they don't need or want close supervision. By contrast, subordinates with little experience or little perceived ability will welcome directive leadership. Locus of control is a personality measure that indicates the extent to which people believe that they have control over what happens to them in life. Internals believe that what happens to them, good or bad, is largely a result of their choices and actions. Externals, on the other hand, believe that what happens to them is caused by external forces beyond their control. Accordingly, externals are much more comfortable with a directive leadership style, whereas internals greatly prefer a participatory leadership style because they like to have a say in what goes on at work. Formal authority systems is an organization's set of procedures, rules, and policies. When the formal authority system is unclear, directive leadership complements the situation by reducing uncertainty and increasing clarity. But when the formal authority system is clear, directive leadership is redundant and should not be used. Primary work group refers to the amount of work-oriented participation or emotional support that's provided by an employee's immediate work group. Does the following path goal theory improve subordinate satisfaction and performance? Preliminary evidence suggests that it does. In particular, people who work for a supportive leader are much more satisfied in their jobs and with their bosses. Likewise, people who work for directive leaders are more satisfied with their jobs and bosses, but not quite as much as when their bosses are supportive and perform their jobs better too. The normative decision theory helps leaders decide how much employee participation should be used when making decisions. Unlike nearly all of the other leadership theories, which have specified leadership styles, that is, the way a leader generally behaves towards followers, the normative decision theory specifies 5 different decision styles. As shown here, those styles vary from autocratic decisions on the left, in which leaders make decisions by themselves, to consultative decisions in the middle, in which leaders share problems with subordinates but still make the decisions themselves, to group decisions on the right, in which leaders share the problems with subordinates and then have the group make the decision. Leaders are responsible for improving the performance of organizations. 2 significant components of a leader's decisions are the quality of the decision and the level of buy-in associated with it. Effective leaders want them both. According to the normative decision theory, using the right degree of employee participation improves the quality of decisions and the extent to which employees accept and are committed to the decisions, that is, buy-in. The quality, leader information, subordinate information, goal congruence, and problem structure rules are used to increase decision quality. Strategic leadership is the ability to anticipate, envision, maintain flexibility, think strategically, and work with others to initiate changes that will create a positive future for an organization. A purpose statement, which is often referred to as an organizational mission or vision, as a statement of a company's purpose or reason for existing. Similarly, visionary leadership creates a positive image of the future that motivates organizational members and provides direction for future planning and goal setting. Followers trust charismatic leaders, are loyal to them, and are inspired to work toward the accomplishment of the leader's vision. Followers who become devoted to charismatic leaders may go to extraordinary lengths to please them. Therefore, we can define charismatic leadership as the behavioral tendencies and personal characteristics of leaders that create an exceptionally strong relationship between them and their followers. Charismatic leaders also articulate a clear vision for the future that's based on strongly held values or morals. Model those values by acting in a way consistent with the vision, communicate high performance expectations of followers, and display confidence in followers' abilities to achieve the vision. Does charismatic leadership work? Studies indicate that it often does. In general, the followers of charismatic leaders are more committed and satisfied, are better performers, and more likely to trust their leaders, and simply work harder. Nonetheless, charismatic leadership also has risks that are at least as large as its benefits. The problems are likely to occur when ego-driven, charismatic leaders who take advantage of faithful followers. In general, there are 2 kinds of charismatic leaders: ethical charismatics and unethical charismatics. Ethical charismatics provide developmental opportunities for followers, are open to positive and negative feedback, recognize others' contributions, share information, and have moral standards that emphasize the larger interests of the group, organization, or society. By contrast, unethical charismatics control and manipulate followers, do what's best for themselves instead of the organization, want to hear only positive feedback, share information that's only beneficial to themselves, and have moral standards that put their interests before everyone else's. Because followers can become just as committed to unethical charismatics as to ethical charismatics, unethical charismatics pose a tremendous risk for organizations. Transformational leadership generates awareness and acceptance of a group's purpose and mission and gets employees to see beyond their own needs and self-interests for the good of the group. Transformational leaders are able to make their followers feel that they are a vital part of the organization and help them see how their jobs fit with the organization's vision. By linking individual and organizational interests, transformational leaders encourage followers to make sacrifices for the organization because they know that they will prosper when the organization prospers. Transformational leadership has four components. First, charismatic leadership or idealized influence. Second, inspirational motivation. Third, intellectual stimulation. And fourth, individualized consideration. Because transformational leaders put others' needs ahead of their own and share risks with their followers, they're admired, respected, and trusted, and followers want to emulate them. Inspirational motivation means that transformational leaders motivate and inspire followers by providing meaning and challenge to their work. By clearly communicating expectations and demonstrating commitment to goals, transformational leaders help followers envision future states such as the organizational vision or mission. In turn, this leads to greater enthusiasm and optimism about the future. Intellectual stimulation means that transformational leaders encourage followers to be creative and innovative, to question assumptions, and to look at problems and situations in new ways. Individualized consideration means that transformational leaders pay special attention to followers' individual needs by creating learning opportunities, accepting and tolerating individual differences, and being good listeners. Finally, a distinction needs to be drawn between transformational leadership and transactional leadership. While transformational leaders use visionary and inspirational appeals to influence followers, transactional leadership is based on an exchange process in which followers are rewarded for good performance and punished for poor performance. When leaders administer rewards fairly and offer followers the rewards they want, followers will often reciprocate with effort.